Hey Judson, this is Ryan, and we find ourselves in a situation that we've never really experienced before. Normally, this time, the last full week of July, we would be on the ball field or at the pool. But this year's a little different. And what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to share some things from my heart, things that've been on my mind. I find myself I'm asking questions probably more than I've ever really had answers. And one of the questions that's been on my mind is what a Christian is supposed to look like. We have the obvious example with Christ, right? We see how he walked and lived his daily life, how he interacted with people, what was important to him. The challenge with that is that sometimes Jesus means different things to different people. He might mean something to me that he means probably a little bit different than you. So how do we really establish on a practical in our life what a Christian is supposed to do or how a Christian is supposed to be? I think sometimes in our lives we look at certain check marks that a Christian has to meet. Does a Christian go to church? Check mark. Does a Christian pray? Check mark. Does a Christian worship? Do they give? Check mark, check mark. And those are all important, vital parts. But I would challenge that a Christian is a lot. Being a Christian, being a follower, being a Christ follower, is more than just meeting those check marks. It's more than just do you listen to K-Love, or more than just do you eat Chick-fil-A 3 times a week. Being a Christian and a Christ follower involves permeating our lives in ways that sometimes we don't think about. So what are our characteristics? I think sometimes, when we think of the things that a Christ follower is or what a Christ follower should do, for example, the love, compassion, generosity, sacrifice, do you live your life with integrity? These are all cool things to say, but they have to be lived out. There has to be examples in our lives of sacrifice. There has to be examples in our life of compassion. When was the last time I showed compassion? When was the last time you showed compassion? When was the last time you showed, generosity? I think the example that Christ gives us is that he gives without keeping track of things. And that's tough. He forgives without keeping track. And what does that mean? That means that Christ didn't have a little notebook in his pocket and he healed someone and said, well, I'm write that down because they're going to owe me. Or he didn't, bless someone, pray for someone, cry over someone and say, well, they owe me. And that's the example for us. And that's tough because Ryan likes keeping track of things. I like to know, well, I did this for you, therefore you owe me this. And that is the complete opposite of how Jesus wants us to live. I want to read a little bit scripture from Luke chapter 4, verse 16. This is Jesus, and he's actually teaching at church. And I'm going to talk about this in a second. Luke chapter 4, verse 16, it said, he came to Nazareth where he'd been reared. As he always did on the Sabbath, he went to the meeting place. When he stood up to read, he was handed the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. Unrolling the scroll, he found the place where it was written. Now listen to this. God's Spirit is on me. He's chosen me to preach the message of the good news to the poor. He sent me to announce pardon to the prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the burdened and battered free, to announce this is God's year to act. He rolled up the scroll, handed it back to his assistant, and sat down. Every eye in the place was on him, intent. Then he started in. You just heard the scripture make history. It came true just now in this place. Basically, Jesus read his mission statement. What is his mission statement? His mission statement is to make whoever's poor, wealthy. Whoever is imprisoned, to set them free. And whoever is sick, to make them healthy. Now, it's more than just money. It's more than, having an illness. It's more than actually physically being in a prison. It's reaches in ways in our lives that sometimes we don't even think about. But this was the mandate that Christ had from his Father, from God the Father, to do these things. And I mentioned that Jesus read this scripture on the Sabbath, and he was in church, if you will. Oftentimes when I drive around or I see people or talk to people, I see certain things and I think to myself, would Jesus be with these people? Jesus, and you know what I find myself thinking? He would probably be with these people more than maybe he would be with me. I have a tendency a little bit to be a hypocrite. I have a tendency to want to judge. And, as we live our lives, we have to understand that if Christ was walking this earth right now, he probably wouldn't be at your church. He wouldn't be at my church. He would be at the place in town or the house outside of town where maybe things are happening that we wouldn't approve of. Because that's where Jesus was sent to spend his time. He was sent, again, to be with the poor, to be with the imprisoned, to be with the sick. So when we come back to the question of what should a Christian look like, here's what I can come up with. A Christian should look uncomfortable. I want to be comfortable. I enjoy a routine. I enjoy, things kind of quiet in my life. I don't really like a lot of unnerving situations. And I'm probably like most people. Unfortunately, that's not the life that we've been called into. We've been called by Christ to live a life where we're out of our comfort zone. What does that mean? That means, as my pastor is often fond of saying, maybe means that you're having your favorite Happy Meal at McDonald's and God puts on your heart to bless someone with a meal. Or maybe, you're living your life and God says you need to a card to this person, a phone call, a text message. Maybe it means that you gift this person something, that you're there for them when you normally wouldn't be. That's uncomfortable at times. And it's unpredictable. So I want to encourage you. I've been trying to pray for God to put me in situations where I can do the things that He's been called to do, to help the sick, the imprisoned, the poor. What can I do, Lord, for your kingdom in those regards? What situations can I impact? These are all things that I think as Christians, when we ask these questions, we're really left with no other alternative but to be uncomfortable. So that's my question. I think maybe we've found an answer. I don't know if it's the answer, but I wish you guys the best. I'm praying for you. I miss you. Love you. Can't wait till we can get together, hopefully next year, and enjoy the great videos that are being posted throughout this week. Take care. God bless.